This show is strictly for educational purposes. The opinions expressed on the show are personal to the individuals appearing in the show and not those of Thinking Tree Ecoholics Private Limited. The show is not intended to offend or defame any individual, entity, caste, community, race, or religion, or to denigrate any institution, person, living or dead. Listener discretion is strongly advised.
Hello and welcome to our show, The Thinking Tree, a show where we talk to economists and professionals about the current economic scenario. Today we have with us as our guest Mr. R.K. Anand, who is advisory and academician in economics and finance. Welcome, sir. Welcome to our show.
So thank you very much, Mr. Sanat, for the invite to this very valuable academic platform where I share your thoughts that what can be exchanged with the student community, particularly to make them economics understand better in the applied sense is our pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Today's topic is dynamics in global and domestic economic growth vis-a-vis financial sector reset. We all know that we have seen 2 years of COVID-19 pandemic and the struggle that our economy faces, not only India and the world economy. On the same line, sir, to begin with, the International Monetary Fund has slashed growth projections for the global economy, citing supply chain disruptions and international healthcare reverberation from the pandemic. What should be the course of action in your opinion?
See, this downsizing of the expected GDP, that too in the global context, not in Indian context. In India, we are a reverse case where people are thinking of revising us upward. Talking of global cues, the thought in the mind of IMF in this latest paper of October, World Economic Outlook, over July view is limited to the context of that they have seen supply side bottlenecks which may come on the way. And somewhere now we have to take on account that again some disturbing resurgence of this pandemic in some pockets of the world has alarmed the bell. But as I go forward on this take, I personally see that now the growth engines have been propelled after a very long spell of the lockdowns, lockdown phase 1 and then phase 2. And now everywhere the economies are in the reopened mode or, partially reopened and protocols being observed. Restrictions on traveling are there in global economies, which are to safeguard the, again, attack being brought by virus from some other part of the country to their country. So you can look towards Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, US, with some, travel inside restrictions over there. But taking this outlook of the IMF into the view and taking my own personal work which is going on the ground regarding revival of the economies, what I see is that the world over now, I have seen this term and rather used myself in a very long time in the past. There was a conference called BankCon, which is the annual conference of the bankers at Mumbai. So in an era of, say, around 2006-7, I that time had studied the economy and presented a paper calling the W-shaped recovery to come up.
Recovery, yes.
So current happening is now, what I see is the volatility of, coming first falling down, then going up, then second wave, again falling up, and now again the third, fourth leg of the economies will follow the pattern broadly around the world. And the last leg of the W, the angle may be different in different economies.
Yes.
Yeah, it may be, if we go by the geometry, the very acute angle and, slow rising W last leg will be the economy where I bring in another alphabet, that is V, dependence upon their journey of the vaccination.
Yes.
As they will, show up their performance. As yesterday, we have all been congratulated by the Prime Minister here in India on achieving this landmark of 100 crore vaccinations, is something very big in the path of, forecasting the recovery of the economy going ahead, wherein even if we count these, single dose candidates and taking 100 crore total vaccination shot in India, I think the rest of the journey will be more faster. And meanwhile, the earlier 2 dose consumers may have a booster dose or some tablets which are coming on the way, which you can have to fight like a general flu or anything. So this W, volatile growth, is a natural order now. Dependence upon V, vaccination. And last is when I come, and I have seen in my interactions with the analysts, investors, and the various management institutes, I am firmly of the view that personally we have seen that when we talk of micros, this W or V may be macros about the economies as a whole. But when we talk of micro, industry, sector, or corporate, we are going to get a K-shaped position in which some of the sectors may go up, rising the upper arm of the K, and some of the sectors may still have a sliding path downside of the K. So macros now summing up into the W and V, micro performances K-shaped. Now K is dependent upon that how far a sector or a particular industry is compliant with the fighting required against this pandemic. Second is how far this digitalization lesson has been taken up by them, and everything on board now, this platform of the digital. So more and more this digital platform used by them, more safeguards pronounced by them in touch and use of the products is going to decide the way. But now the journey seems getting excited in India when I come to domestic, with the airline rush rising, festival season, the tourism, hotels, everywhere you go, the people coming up, demands for the things shooting up, and this supply constraints coming up in a way, confronting them. So yesterday, a very interesting discussion was going on, which I'll just share with the community of the students under Ecoholics, and I will be glad to know that. Now the future path, as I think Dr. Rajiv Kumar, the Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, was saying yesterday, to simplify the situation out of his vast experience, that now onwards the chips, that is the microprocessors shortage, supply side issue. Ships means the trading, export imports, and trips, the tourism travel
Yes.
are going to be the deciding way. So ship and trip,
And trips. Yes.
they will be the facilitators as fast as we surpass these in a very, very simple way. So now I think this vaccine issue is major to my mind. And flip side also I want to put in here, that one is that how the population of a country behaves going forward, one despite vaccination, is one issue. Second is this yesterday or a day before, for the past 2 days, no information is coming out with the China again going shut. More than about 200 flights getting cancelled, resurgence in our neighborhood. So I don't know how this may pan out. So I put it as a risk factor.
Yes.
Now, this two things I'll discuss as we go along further. But I just put it on the drawing board. One is inflation.
Yes.
On the way. And other is that how we come out of this, the issue of job creation for those who have either lost or partially lost their this employment. So this is my take on your first question. Thank you.
So talking on to the inflation part, the unprecedented nature of the current recovery has raised questions about how long supply will take to catch up with the accelerating demand that we are experiencing. These uncertainties are fueling worries that inflation could persistently overshoot, like you said, and that persistent overshoot central bank targets and de-anchor expectations. What is your opinion on this?
Very right. On the face of the question, I am with you in sharing this apprehension. And in all my writings, all my talks, I have myself been raising the issue which you are raising. It's a very natural on your part and your friends to think of the things like this. I think now with this, apprehension all around, what we can say is that, in terms of your question, first is the, this time lag you have said, that how far this supply will take into the view.
Yes.
And second is the, inflation thing catching up. See, this takes us now to confront the position put up by the central banks all over the world, that perhaps there is a need to recognize the cost push inflation as a reality. Now, unfortunately, when the policymakers sit together, that too the monetary policy vis-a-vis the fiscal policy group, traditionally, historically, some thread or the other gets, not very well coordinated between them. So sometimes they say, I have done my job has been to provide, ensure liquidity, and rest is the fiscal arm to do. How a monetary policy be effective in fighting the cost push inflation. And those from the policy angle on the public finance side, expecting more to be done by the monetary policies. So we have come at a crossroads of the monetary policy and the fiscal policy.
Yes.
And cost push issue is the reality. It may be, the price rise caused by a determined strategy by the fuel sector,
Yes.
which is, shot the Brent to a rise of $85 per, barrel. From levels we were comfortable at 60, 63, 65. Petrol in the India also on the street is 105 per liter. Very swift rise, 13, 14, 15 time, increase in a short time. Commodities, by the nature of the shortage created by the producing countries, one. Second, here I think as students, we have to understand that some part of this cost push inflation is going to be structural from here, which may not be addressed even by solving the supply side issues. So we have to believe that this cost push inflation will get recognized in a quarter or 2 quarters more by the monetarists also. And the inflation projections are having the pressure of upward revision. Now, what is this structural thing which may be new? See, this China factor causing the reduction in supply of certain produce which they were producing from their factories is a shortage for the global market to trade in. And this, until and unless, gets substituted by either, change of the product or say some composition in the raw material or more production domestically in the different economies, is here to stay. One. Second is the economies which are more dependent upon the manufacturing sector may definitely come up, posting the higher inflation numbers from the cost push side.
Yes.
So monetarists for the time being can be said that in their projections, inflation is a transitory thing.
Yes.
From our economist point of view, we are seeing this as now a transition from lower input cost to higher input costs, which may partially get offset by the removal of supply bottlenecks, but a component of this may remain. So the inflation threat is very genuine. Number two, when we all are thinking of now the growth rates going up, the economy is coming to revival. So growth always brings inflation along.
Yes.
I haven't seen any non-inflationary growth. So growth in itself is a sort of inflation. So how well it gets controlled is the success of the monetary and the fiscal side both. Yes. So here is one answer. Second is now I want to comment upon India, and then I'll come to the last this time lag question which you have said. Now this I have seen that the composition of GDP of a country is going to decide the time lag of the economy. If I take the typical traditional 3 sectors which we read in the textbooks, like the farm sector, agriculture, industry, and services sector. See, farm sector may get least impacted by the growth or the inflation because of its very nature of good at hygiene, distancing, less spread of the pandemic, etc., and less threats also going forward. And they are posting good growth right now also with the good monsoons, etc. Second is the this manufacturing sector may remain affected for the supply side issues which we have already discussed. So the manufacturing, this inflation may remain up. So the agrarian based economies may come out fast. Time lag for the revival may be less. Where manufacturing is predominant, they may take a longer time to come back to revival and the job creations, etc. Third is the services sector. See, services sector, just after the reopening of economy shot up, went up by the demand in the services and the new type of the services, digital services created. But as a student of the economics, I have seen a correlation that the services sector cannot sustain at its own for a long. It ultimately needs the backup from the manufacturing sector also. So now somewhere in the PMI index, what I see, and the other deceleration a bit in the services sector also seen, because see, the agriculture and the services together, this combo, whatever they could do, they have done. So it's the turn of now the manufacturing sector to roll out.
Yes.
So this is the scenario here. In case of India, if I combine agriculture and service, this constitutes to two-thirds, more than two-thirds, I think three-fourths of the GDP.
Yes.
Somewhere, 74, 75%.
74, yes.
Will be the contribution in the GDP.
Contribution.
This is the reason that we may grow faster compared to other economies in the world. And
these are less COVID impacted.
Less
Maybe.
COVID.
Sorry to interrupt in between, but yeah, that's what.
Yeah, I enjoy.
Partly due to base effect as well, sir. So like the growth is going down.
You can say that, agriculture, because of the reasons we have discussed, because less prone to pandemic. This view I gave to even McKinsey in the March 20 when it started. They asked me to write the initial jottings of this issue, that how this may pan out. Very first line I remember came out of my pen was that the farm sector may get least impacted. So that is there because of the beauty of the farm sector to be away from the pandemics, Second, in case of India, as you were saying, you can take one more factor in case of India. Services sector in India is very strongly backed by our digital wealth of knowledge in India. Younger age entrepreneurs, new companies, and very good at digitalization.
Yes.
So this has propelled services sector also very good, which is in search of now the real business to come out of the industrial sector. So that's why our reason to grow faster are boosted by farm sector and services sector. And now with this government of India's emphasis on self-dependence, the first time in the such long career I'm enjoying, the exports showing good from India, So all these factors are relevant. So agriculture, the fastest recovery, manufacturing-led countries last, services faster, and fastest if the agriculture is also there. So this is the sort of combination.
This is taking the clue from the currency that you're talking about. Right now we have digital and cryptocurrencies. They are rapidly changing the nature of money itself.
Right.
Digital currencies issued by central bank will have big implications for the financial sector and how banks make money.
Right.
Could a proliferation of new currencies threaten the stability of the financial system?
Yeah. Very, very topical question you are asking. I can say myself as a very less literate on this digital and cryptocurrencies, most like many on the earth, because this is a new phenomena. But as a student of economics, we all are blessed with, the vision. Whenever you economic students are sitting in the policy group, or you are sitting particularly with the finance group, I tell you, you people will always have more far vision, a better understanding of the things emerging than the normal person. So this is my compliment for the economic students. Like you, in a big drive to push economics, I really enjoy this afternoon with you. What I say is, out of my banking and finance and economics combo, because I used to say I have two eyes, one economics and the other finance. So I don't know, my specs has two lenses. So I used to have a fight in the boardrooms also with my vision different from the finance group. Here I look at this digital and crypto, Sanat and your friends, I want to share now. We all have to believe that these currencies have come a long journey and they are here going to stay.
Yes.
This is a reality. Number two, this, we have studied in the textbooks money as a medium of exchange, transfer of value, store of value.
Yes.
Here when I analyze this, this currencies, this Bitcoin, etc. And today I think they have touched the all-time high of 67,000. So they are not meeting all these three functions of the money. The store of the value is okay. It can't measure. Measurement ability is not there. Now, when we go as a medium of exchange, it cannot exchange the goods to other goods in terms of the digital because its own valuation is not known.
Yes.
Now, with this, the third thing is the situation with this and the general characteristics with these currencies is that they are very volatile and therefore become risky for you and me, a common man on the street.
Yes, true.
Now, going forward, what will happen and what is likely to happen? We can't use will in economics. We have to say what is likely to be happen.
Likely, yes.
See, the likely thing is that, like we have seen earlier, two systems like Bretton Woods and the gold standards systems came in the similar way. Now, this situation will compel the official entry of central banks in this issue because this digital, whatever this technology is, blockchain, it has earned a title of digital asset, but it is not one as digital currency.
Yes.
Now, digital asset, even if they have won this title, because a lot of investment is happening, that's why I call it digital asset more and less as a digital currency. Currency will be when this will be in your pocket, my pocket, then we'll call it currency. And without the official fiat stamp of the central bank, it cannot be currency. So now going forward, yesterday I heard that in US, the Securities Exchange Commission has given it the permission to the exchange traded funds to be floated based upon digital currencies. Certain smaller, safe havens like Ecuador or Luxembourg, centers of exchange of the, all that dirty money. And the money laundering, etc., which we keep on fighting in the banking system, they are becoming hubs of this. So now the central banks, I, like you, am watching their mind. They have given the official permission in their mindset to think of a measurable, stable, safe system of bringing in this component of currency into the official stream. But till the time the areas, the extent, the valuations by them are discussed, which may take 3 to 5 years, till that time, it's definitely going to impact money supply, the liquidity, because when the investment comes to the main economy, the physical or the financial assets get bought, that money comes to be redeployed also for the productive reasons. But whatever money is going into these channels may just encourage some speculation, something which is not very well accounted for. And last comment I want to make, that the subscriber or the customers of your age, normally the youngsters, digitally strong, they are their, main prey in the digital currency area. And rest of the population may not be affected. But yes, I end up on this point that economies may get impacted since it is also an indicator of liquidity. So it may be L0, L1 or L2 or L3. Some L has to be assigned to this also.
True.
Right.
Talking about banks, sir, India's NPAs have risen throughout in the aftermath of the global financial crisis of 2008. But the problem has become particularly pronounced during the last 5 years when RBI mandated that lenders clearly recognize the toxic loans on their books. How will the National Asset Reconstruction Company, or famously known as Bad Bank, help India in this crisis?
Very right. See, this is a very interesting question, and this is, being dealt sometime by me on hand. So I can give you the applied side flavor of this question.
Yes. That would be great.
Yeah, my experiences also with this. I was a member of a core group which got constituted in the current country in this was in the January 2008, when this global meltdown has really assumed a very high heat in the economy, and there were talks of insulating Indian economy from the heat, which the lava which may get fell upon India also. Now, at that time, there was a talk there in the US of the banks like this called TARP, TARP, Troubled Assets Resolution Process, because people have done mess with the financial systems at that time by extra leveraging the financial products, creating certain exotic derivatives like, asset-based securities, mortgage-based securities, some, extra proliferation of the money. 1 rupee capital will do 28 rupees of business.
Yes.
Your money I am showing in my books as capital. This is shown by the third party as a capital. So excessive leveraging was there at that time. Now, in India, after, even before pandemic, I would be very frank in saying we were facing the slowing economy in this context of the NPAs, and we were on the path of tackling them, the large corporate NPAs, by way of the insolvency and bureaucracy setup we had made in our country. But now with the pandemic coming, and last year the expert group constituted under Mr. Kamath, the earlier Kamath of ICICI.
Yes.
We had set a resolution path in our country where officially now there are identified some sectors and industries which got impacted by the long lockdown. When a lockdown happens, the cash flow of that industries go totally shut because there are no sales. And it is very difficult to revive the large enterprises, those who have remained shut for 1.5 years, and earlier also for a year or two, they were in the slow mode. Now, what happens? This sickening of the balance sheet of the corporate comes on the temperature meter as a sick assets on the balance sheet of the banks. This is called twin balance sheet syndrome.
Yes.
Fever getting transferred from the corporate balance sheet to the bank balance sheet.
Yes.
Now, bank is one entity who has the resources of a third party depositor, which has a certain maturity date.
Maturity, yes.
So now this uncertainty in recovery combined with certainty of the maturity, gets faced with each other. And here, get bonds the NPA. Here it get bonds the problem of asset liability mismanagement. Now, to fight this situation when it happens at a very large scale in a banking in a country like India, this, after trying so many things, is the last resort. No one will like a bad bank to be set up to have a good type of the resolution. So when the normal resolutions get exhausted, these type of things spring up. And I have worked with very senior bankers hands-on, and myself being banker with them, we say this always remain our last preference. Now, after having said this, now let us see, even if at all last now because of pandemic or a long sickness of the industrials, if this bank has got formed, now let us try to put this bank into a ICU category, not the mortuary. With this, I want to send and explain to my students and your students here that ICU approach is that a sick account is being brought for intensive care. Always oxygen and blood is up, and both are the costly resources, and some mechanism is being worked out to revive this account. Good approach.
Yes.
But if we dump all these accounts and it becomes a mortuary, everyone will say, clear it, it's smelling. So it doesn't fetch any value. Now, this is a huge value assets. Right now, only some 30,000 crore we talk of, first lot getting into this system, and a long queue is there further. But now this first lot of say 23,000 or 30,000 crore getting into this, first you understand, this will be, transferring the heat from the asset side on the balance sheet of bank to a new institution, and the cash which gets as a down payment going back on the balance sheet of the bank. So bad asset gone out, fresh cash on the bank asset side is a strength.
Yes.
One.
Yes.
Second is the remaining money which is not given to banks, which is said that this bad bank will recover and repay. For the time being, Government of India has come with a very good scheme that they will be giving government guaranteed receipts to the banks in lieu of the remaining balance of these accounts.
Okay.
So that goes back to the asset side of the bank balance sheet as investment. So now you just apply little bit finance in economics, look at the asset side. Asset side composition is changed. The dead wood is taken out, cash is put as number one, and the investment is put as second. So now you are a healthy, your oximeter has been removed, your oxygen is there. Second good thing is, which is the wonderful thing done by Indian banks, and that's why the stock market is giving valuations now to the banks. Going forward for the 2-3 months, you will see the investor chipping into the banking scripts in India. Now, for what? All these years, say 2 years painful of the COVID and 3 years prior to that of slowdown, 5 years, bankers have done very good work that based on Reserve Bank of India criteria, whatever is the percentage of provision required for NPA, they have done more than that. So on a thumb rule, 75% to 80% of NPA, depending upon bank to bank, is now covered by the provisions already made by them out of their profits. So that's why they have shown losses during last 3 financial years. The net loss was there. Gross profit minus provisions is net profit. So net profit is negative. So they have shown loss. But in turn, they have put a good money as provisions. So now this bad bank, if it helps in recovery of, say, I give you a very, very crude estimate, even if it gives 40 paisa back out of 100, 75, 80 paisa is already lying on the balance sheet of the bank. So this way, what we can do, we can de-burden the bank balance sheets, bring in fresh cash, fresh investable funds, have a scope now for the fresh credit. And the banks, until and unless they become ready to be participative in economic development, the economic development cannot happen, particularly in a country like India. Because going forward, the revival has to happen in infrastructure.
Yes.
From where the money will come. And the money will come to banks. The investors will pool in capital only if the banks show now this de-burdening of NPAs and their capacity to fuel future growth. So in a way, let us wish that the ICU approach will be adopted and this bad bank experiment is done by us in a unique way in our country.
My next question is that due to the high debt to GDP levels, there's a possibility of fiscal debt remaining wider than the pre-pandemic levels for the next few years.
Yeah.
What measures will make that right?
See, it is already overshot the pre-pandemic level. We used to be at 74 level and now we are talking of 89-90%, which is in line with all the global economies because, the governments have to run the show of pandemic by stimuluses, grants, subsidies, and all that raised by the, debt route by the governments. And so far, even if we see ourselves, we have not crossed 100. There are economies like Japan where you can measure it, threefold of
200, yes.
So I say that the debt, if is to be now, you want to know that how it can get resolved. See, this monetization of public sector enterprises, which on hand in our country, is one way to bring this level down. Second is as we grow further, and already we have started growing, the buoyancy in this, the tax collection may bring it down further. Statistically, so far ratio is high because only the numerator is growing.
Yes.
So the third factor will be when denominator starts growing, the percentage itself has a tendency to come down.
Yes.
And if you just, ask me, that I see the government of India is very seriously sticking to its financial regulation and budget management agenda. So what they are thinking that, this extra non-core assets with the government, like certain land pockets lying somewhere in the country, which are backward or say underdeveloped areas, which get sold to the enterprises. Certain enterprises like Air India deal, which has happened, has brought down the government's burden, which they used to incur time to time. LIC going now public way, raising money for themselves. Banks, after say about 6 months or 9 months, maybe in a position to tap market at their own when they just declare their March results this time. I think we are hopeful of seeing the good results from the banking sector also, which may attract the long-term capital. So far, I see the private sector banks getting ready for this. ICICI, HDFC, Kotak, State Bank of India, one I want to mention, PNB doing something on these lines. Canara is in a fine position now to go to market. So when I see these banks, they are preparing themselves to be market ready. Since I have done one large QIP with my own hand for one Indian bank, and successfully have traveled across the world investment centers and brought the money to country, and we have closed the issue in one night only. So that all was dependent upon fundamentals those days. So now these fundamentals getting correct once again
Yes.
with deburdening and the new lessons learned by us, may God help us in not repeating those mistakes once again. I think going forward, these all factors, one is sale of the public enterprises, monetization of non-core assets, increased tax compliance, increased national income, all this, and the public sector going market for raising capital at their own. These factors are the things which will bring down the, this debt to GDP ratio for India.
Very useful suggestion, sir. Students will get benefit from this when they write answers in UPSC examination. My last question to you, sir, is talking about external sector.
Yeah.
External sector buffers for India are very strong. RBI has more than over $600 billion foreign exchange reserves that
Yeah.
provide them with a lot of ammunition to handle a period of massive risk aversion.
Very right.
How can this be useful for India's economic growth?
Say, as you yourself have said, that these funds are really very useful. No economy can think of protecting itself without these funds. And we
Yes.
remember our own bad days when we had not these funds and we had to keep our gold outside to the other countries
Yes.
pledging. So
True.
now we are in a very strong position of, crossing 600 billion and touching close to 700 billion now, 693. And the forex again getting swelled. Right now on the apply side, I just want to share you one benefit. Like, say, we are oil importing country and 85% of our need of the fuel at oil we import it.
Yes.
Oil is a very costly commodity right now, $83 per barrel. And I don't know OPEC what they will do, maybe taking it 95 or 90. But that they will not do, that will be insanity on their part.
Yes.
But right now, these high reserves are helping India in keeping the rupee strong. Reserve Bank of India may not say, but as a regulator, I know they may be in a
Yes.
seat of comfort, having a peaceful sleep, that this strong rupee is buying more oil from the world for the need of the country. So this is one that your currency gets strengthened, which is a favorable point right now because we are a net importing country.
Mhm.
Second is that, when you have this forex excess in your balance sheet, the balance of payment, balance of trade does not remain a problem for you. The entire world knows that you are in a position to pay off for your imports.
Yes.
And in international market, there is a fashion of counting that how many months a country can support its payment. So,
Import cover. But yeah.
import cover. So we are having a very sound import cover, strong rupee, and this going forward, if I am in a position to link one or two aspects more into this, is that the exchange system of the country, which we are into a not fully convertible currency, we have made as a partially convertible currency system. Now, with this huge assets in our, we call them forex assets or foreign assets in the language of IMF. In our balance sheet, as the forex reserves, our exchange system always remains supportive. Not like this market tendency I have quoted, that is a different thing. It's a temporary phenomenon that the strong rupee is supporting oil, but it supports your currency exchange system as a whole in the world, and you become stronger in those terms. So I think this is a good phenomenon, and Reserve Bank of India's maneuverability is very high in managing the market risk. That is another benefit. Suppose sometime, there is say dollar buying or flying from the Indian FIIs, or to some extent FDI, like Ford says, I am closing my workshop and going out. FII suppose go abruptly selling the securities.
Yes.
At that time, this becomes a tool for us for our market risk management. Secondly, liquidity risk management in terms of the forex liquidity. So these are the good points which are supportive to this. So that is the in broad. Rest is little more technical. So I think all these foreign currency reserves, I can say, they are very good for the well-being of ours as we are going forward on the path of revival. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. At last, I would appreciate if you have a few words for the students and for Ecoholics as our team.
Very nice. First of all, my compliment to you and your team. I have met two of you. Ecoholics is the name I relish, because I am also alcoholic to economics, so Ecoholics. So very well, you can safely give me admission in your community. This one, alcoholism of the economics has kept me glued from the time of my college days to this. And I had worked as the chief economist for the second largest bank of the country and member of the IBA Monetary Policy Group. And right now working with a very prestigious self-help group in the national capital with the former Prime Minister Economic Advisor and one more World Bank economist. So we keep on enjoying sipping, eating, sleeping with economics. So this is a good name which you have searched. Second is, I say it's a good going for all of you, the way you are organizing the events. Keep it up with more fervor. And my tip, my suggestion to you and your friends is that embed one word, that is inquisitive.
Yes.
Always remain interested to raise questions particularly in economics, because this is more get cleared by the questions and by asking. Keep reading the market developments, market dynamics. We as economists are never free. Somewhere some economies open always, and before you get up, something has changed the valuables. That's how I used to teach the market risk to the banks, which is little less appreciated in our country. The credit risk and operational risk, they are well appreciated, but market risk, we have to do a lot, which is my personal belief. Now, coming back to your platform and the students of economics, what I personally have gained over a long career in economics in the field is that, see, when we sell and take pure economics, the pure economics means the text economics, we enjoy our cup of tea, but this needs some more flavor to be more lucrative and interesting for the market. Sometimes this is the level where most of the economists, they get sidelined by the mainliners, and very few cross this line and become successful economists. So my mantra here as a well-wisher of the economic student is that along with your economics knowledge and your updating with the analysis of the economic events, add the flavor of finance. See the economics in application to the financial markets along with the economics. What I'm saying is that have the flavor of public fiscal policy side also, and have the monetary
Yes.
policy
Monetary policy.
also. Top of it, have little bit financial analysis, simple financial analysis of the corporates also, that how rise in inflation and increase in interest rate will bring the change in the parameters of the balance sheet of a corporate.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Now, with
Perfect.
my very simple corollary, and the last thing is that we are very good bakers as economics. We prepare very nice pizza breads, which are very fresh and very hot and very well in demand. Let us top it up with the finance. That will be a sort of cheese for this thing. So our pizza, that becomes more flavored with the topping of public finance and the this financial market analysis.
Okay. Yes.
So you become good in economics, you becomes good in finance, you become good in investment also. Then
Yes.
it's your really successful day when you sit in with the investment banker. He asks you your economics and wants to help him in the finance.
Finance. Yes. Indeed.
So that is the motto I want to set up for colleagues. Pizza baked by the economists with toppings of this finance and investment analysis.
Perfectly summed up, sir, because if we study microeconomics, you have to study firms, and the firms like cash flow, profit loss, and the balance sheet. These are the three important. So I totally understand your concern, and this is how we will teach the future economist. At the last, sir, thank you so much for tuning and for coming to our show, and thanks for accepting our invitation. It was a wonderful conversation, and it is very helpful for the students to get the insights from the banker's perspective, from the academician perspective, from the perspective of finance. So you have brought down a 360-degree view to the analysis of the Indian economy. Once again, thank you so much, sir, for coming to our Thinking Tree Talk.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I have enjoyed my participation today. And my best wishes for all of you to have a grand success. Remain in touch.
Thank you, sir. Same here. Have a nice day.
Thank you.